What's up, everyone? It is Richie here from the F1 podcast. Happy Friday night, November 7th, 2025. We are recording this a couple of hours after the sprint qualification of the Brazilian Grand Prix. I'm here with my man, Andrew. Andrew, I know it's been a while since our last episode. A lot of feelings going on, especially with the Toronto Blue Jays in the city. It's getting darker earlier. So, how are you doing, my man?
It's been almost a week since they lost, and it still hurts a lot. As a fan, you were just invested in every pitch. That team was an absolute joy to watch, not only just in terms of their performance on the field, but how they acted as like a family on and off the field. It was like a really unique team and one that like money can only buy to a certain extent, right? It's the people that make the team worthwhile. And you kind of you wanted them to win in that case. But, life has a funny way of working itself out. So hopefully, this is only the start of a great time for Toronto Blue Jays fans coming down the line.
We're hoping so because our organization has gone through some dark days, and I think while this is a Formula One pod,
Almost some would say like McLaren has gone through dark days and now they're kind of coming together as a family
Do
and
a barrel
winning
roll.
a lot now.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I think just as a Canadian Formula One podcast, like we wanted to make sure we talk about the Jays because the moment right now that was kind of like our rallying cry. It was not so much just the city of Toronto or the province of Ontario. It felt like the whole country was behind this team. And yeah, you talked about it every pitch, and you're going against like the giants, like of the LA Dodgers, Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Teoscar Hernandez, and then if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Yoshi Yamamoto.
Oh yeah, Yonoshibu Yamamoto, that guy literally was incredible. Came in, pitched like two complete game or pitched two wins, game two and game six. Had 96 pitches the night before game seven, still came in and closed it off. Like you won't see that in a long time. Last guy I can think of doing that was Madison Bumgarner, 2014 World Series. But it was, as much as I hated it, it was quite spectacle to watch, to be honest with you. You can only tip your cap to
Yeah,
them in that sense.
they are. There's a reason why they are the back-to-back champions. It is a historic franchise, one in 2020. Um, yeah, it stings. It will. It stung when we lost, especially into a double play. The minute I saw that bat crack, I knew I knew it was over. But
You know
um,
what? At least what's exciting is that even though now that our heart was a little broken with the Jays, the adrenaline is now pumping for the end of the F1 season, in my opinion, because
yeah,
we had an incredible race in Mexico City last 2 weeks ago, where we saw a change in championship hands,
yep.
where Lando Norris had an incredible weekend. I mean, that guy is like, let's say, the Vladdy Guerrero of the postseason with his race last week. He took a commanding start. Overall, had such a great pole lap. It was just fantastic, in that sense. And then came in to do his job and won the Mexico City Grand Prix, and not only win, but annihilate his teammate Oscar Piastri, who had a really tough weekend overall. And as a result, that puts Norris in the championship lead now by a point. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it continues on for the rest of the season, especially with how strong Norris looked today in the sprint qualifying in Brazil. He has found another gear.
30-second lead when he crossed the final lap over Charles Leclerc in Mexico.
Like it was a statement victory. I mean, he was picture perfect that weekend in Mexico City, and I can only like, again tip my cap to him in that sense because I didn't really think he had it in him, to be honest with you. But this is kind of a new side of Lando Norris that is quite interesting to watch.
Yeah, and like let's kind of build on that because this season has gone through ups and downs and the changes of drivers in terms of like the leads. Like think about this: Lando Norris held the championship lead for the first four rounds of the season, but Oscar Piastri took the lead in Saudi Arabia. The Australian led the way heading into the following 15 rounds. But now it's 1 point. It is now 1 point. And if we do the math right now, there is 116 points remaining in the sense that if you were to win everything into the four races, the two sprints, and as we like roll into Brazil, it could be anyone's game. And now like yeah, you see Verstappen, and while Verstappen maybe didn't have the greatest of weekends in the sense of in Mexico where while he didn't win the race, he's
He
still
was still
chipping
able to
away.
get.
He's still
Oh
chipping
yeah, and
away.
he was still chip. He was able to chip away on like technically on Oscar, right? And so in with the change in hands, it's still a net win for Max this past weekend. He had a really tough start. I think, well, to be fair, everybody kind of had a tough start in that top five. I had never
Nobody
seen so much
did
corner
anyone
cutting
not
in my
realize
life.
what did anyone not realize what turn one was?
There was no such thing as track limits, but in a way, when you're going so fast, like the straightaway to turn one is so long,
Yeah.
and when you're trying to jockey for position, that like this is going to happen eventually where people forget where the corner is. People don't give a shit where the corner is. People are going to cut the corner, and just to see everybody kind of go off into the grass, and it looked like four or five different lawnmowers going through the infield there, coming back onto the track. And where Lewis Hamilton got penalized for 10 seconds in that sense to gain a track because he beat Verstappen on the way out. It was quite interesting. Again, it was just a nightmare for the stewards to have to figure out that situation.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the coffin there. Verstappen was forced to drive around the first three turns as a result. Leclerc briefly gained a position, but he wouldn't cut the track, had to give the position back. Norris's teammate Oscar Piastri had a bad start, dropped. Liam Lawson was hit by Carlos Sainz, retired shortly. Ollie Behrman, who took ninth of the race, went up to fourth, and
Yeah,
that was Haas's best result since I think Nico Hulkenberg from was it Hulkenberg or Roman Grosjean in 2018.
it just and you were. I was just hoping that Behrman could have pulled off a podium there. It would have been so cool to see Haas's first podium, in their entire career there.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, a double points finish for them. I believe it's their fourth of the campaign. And it was I think their best score result of the year, or tied at least, because I think they took 14 points from in China when they
Mhm.
had the sprint and the qualifying. So it's their best race result, let's say, combined in that case. And now they're fighting for sixth in the championship, which is incredible considering how far back they were a couple years ago, right? Finishing, P10, not even sniffing at any points. What Ayo Komatsu has done with the team has been incredible, and I think it was the correct decision to be obviously making that change away from Gunther Steiner. As much as we didn't like it, it was very much a great call.
You got to think about it that from sixth to ninth, it's still very much in play with Racing Bulls at 72, Aston Martin at 69, Haas at 62, and Kick Sauber at 60. And we talk about all the potential points that are in play for the next couple of races. Maybe let's be realistic here. Like we expect those out of those four teams them to win the races? Probably not. But in order to get them in those like P8s, P7s, P6s, scrape away on some of those much needed points in the constructors. So um yeah, I mean it was just like kind of a very fun race to watch at Garden Bar Bodega. The weather held up. It was a little chilly on the patio, but a couple of pints to watch some carnage. Could not ask for anything better.
And like also, can we go talk about your boy, Charles Leclerc there? Mr. Podium Man there in Mexico City, and then Mr. Ring Man this past week, proposing to his fiance.
But good for him.
I love it. I love how his pup helped with it too. Like it was such a cute thing.
Leo is just a star when it comes to this. But yeah, a great weekend for him in Mexico. Maybe not so much the response in the sprint race if we want to like segue over to Brazil. Man, like we are always in for a treat when it comes to Brazil. And so far, in terms of qualifying today, the sprint qualification, the McLarens were looking pretty strong. Lando looks like he's on continuous form. I guess the question was going to be how are the drivers going to respond in the title lead change? And like, I think some of the key things is how is McLaren's going to respond with a title change? Verstappen needs to stay close. And then, yeah, we talked about that team championships in terms of the constructors. Those were kind of my headlines going into this weekend. And, so far, looks like Lando's capitalized with a very impressive sprint qualification so far.
Yeah, finished like pretty much a full tenth ahead of surprise Kimi Antonelli and Mercedes there. Congratulations to him on his P2 performance there. Then it was followed by Oscar in P3. So Lando um, already having the upstage on his teammate out of the gate. Lando posting a 1 minute 9.243, Oscar posting a 1 minute 9.428. So pretty much a 2/10 difference between the two is quite a bit considering the same machinery. So Oscar's got to really pick it up. He's had a tough bit of form. He's had a tough dip in form, I'd say,
Yeah.
past couple of races. And I don't know if it's the pressure just getting to him, if is it in his head that he feels like maybe his team's not on his side because with the whole rule changes going on and stuff like
Well,
that internally.
I was explaining it, Andrew. It's like papaya. What are papaya rules? If Oscar does it, bad, bad, bad. If Lando does it, it's fine. We're good.
Which and I get where like Oscar's frustration would be, but he's got to put that out of his mind and force McLaren to back him. You know what I mean? In terms of his performances on the weekend, so to speak. And if it means having to come down to a fight with Lando, get the elbows out, buddy, because like this is the only way you're going to be able to win the championship going
Well, like
forward.
you really don't have anything to lose. Well, debatable, but like you don't really have. Well, yeah, kind of because
Yeah.
like if they keep crashing, then Max Verstappen comes out of nowhere and wins, which I mean I'm okay with, to be honest, as a Ferrari fan. But like, yeah, like I think you're kind of coming to the end. It's like you're gonna have to start taking some risks. I guess you're gonna have to start cutting some grass. Track limits are kind of a beautiful thing, I guess.
Well, and what I was shocked about was, speaking of Max, how poor his qualifying performance was today at the sprint. Like he did not have a good practice session at all. Like I think his highest was P17,
Yeah,
and then he finishes P7, or was it P7 or P6? But he's starting behind. Oh, he's P6. He's starting on the same
P6.
row as Fernando Alonso, man, and Aston Martin.
Both the Aston Martins look good, with a P5 and a P7 finish. It's like, I guess, are they trying to play spoiler in the constructors now? I guess.
I don't know. They had a terrible Mexico. I mean, Alonso had to retire. Uh, Stroll had an early spin, which just did not bode well for his performance overall, and he got eliminated in Q1 for the 14th time this year, I think. It's been nuts. But to come out today and just have a statement in terms of the qualification, P5, P7, great to see that. But it's like it's tough because, for Max, you're starting way on the back foot. I know it's only a sprint qualifying, but that kind of sets the level that sets the tone for the weekend overall. And but last year he started way in the back of the field, right? And he was able to win the race. So it's kind of, it's anything is possible, especially if it rains, especially if it rains.
Don't count Max Verstappen out. Like, he might be suggesting his car is having issues, but he always finds a way to pull it back. And especially, yeah, we talked about like I think the long-term forecast in our notes here said rain and thunderstorms all race weekend. I think today they got lucky with some clouds and just some dryness. So like I wouldn't maybe the sprint race I would not expect it,
Well,
but
and I give Max the edge if it's raining. I 100% give Max the edge. He is an absolute machine in the wet at Interlagos. You've seen it even back for when pretty much his rookie season in 2016 in his drive there. He is not afraid of the wet conditions there. And Lando had a really tough time last year in the wet conditions in Brazil. So it really is quite an interesting thing to see, especially tomorrow when the sprint and the qualifying happens.
time will tell on some of those things where, it could be a matter of laps and inches, and seconds to kind of win this either the sprint and doing well in qualifications. I guess if we want to segue just really briefly on some news this week, the Massa case is starting up again. He appeared in court, to challenge the 2000, is it the 2008 championship that he lost, I believe. So that's wow. So we're just kind of going to continue to monitor that thing. But I'm going to be honest with you on a different topic though. Colapinto, Alpine has announced their driver lineup for next year, and Pierre Gasly and Colapinto are coming back. I think the question was if Colapinto was going to be resigned, and I personally, I was a little bit shocked because it's just given on the form that he's had this year, and it's just been inconsistent. But they are, I guess they're willing to give him another chance or see how things are going to go for it. And especially, we've talked about other teams of, why not don't rock the boat? Let's maybe see how things are going to go in 2026. We need some experience. I thought they were going to take the risk, but they decided, let's keep Colapinto, and of course, and I guess that's what they did.
Yeah, especially when Briatore is especially one that is quick to pull the trigger when it comes to those types of changes, right? He did that with Jack doing early on in the season for Colapinto, and it's just a matter of, or he's done in the past with regards to, moving on from doing for Colapinto. It's just, I wonder what I wonder why he wanted to keep there because I think there was some options out there. He could have pulled like a Yuki Tsunoda from Red Bull
Yeah.
in that sense as a potential seat there. If all things considered, maybe there would have been an extra clause that they couldn't afford in that case for him to come. But I don't know. I just don't see Colapinto really moving the needle as to what Alpine needs for next year, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just looking at it, like he obviously is sitting P20, and Pierre Gasly is sitting P18, and Franco Colapinto, he's the only driver on the grid who's not scored points this season, other than Jack Doohan, who his last race was this Imola? No, Miami, of this season. So I was personally shocked. I thought they would go for a young driver and just risk it and see if things would change differently. But I think they want to give him another chance. And like he's shown potential over the last year on what he can do. But I think personally I thought there's going to be a new driver in. So I think if that makes it, if that now fills up Alpine's seats, I think the only ones that are left are Red Bull. So we're all now looking at Red Bull. Both, yeah, second space and Red Bull and both the V card seats. Those are still yet to be determined. And I think Hamlet Marco said they were going to announce it within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. So should be interesting in that case. We're kind of towards the final part of the season, and that's with regards to determining the driver lineup. But I, yeah, I was just kind of surprised that, maybe there, I wonder what if there was a push to have Yuki come to Alpine in that sense. I don't know what, it would have been interesting to see.
hmm hmm That's for sure. Um, Very quick episode this week, as we had a lot to catch up on, and we wanted to make sure we, really touched about Brazil on tonight on Friday night. So this is Andrew. This is Ricci. Thank you for tuning into this week's of the F1 podcast, season 5, episode. I think I said 29 to start the episode. Yes, 29, episode 29. As I said, 4 races left, 2 sprint races left, a lot of points still in play. It could be anyone's game, especially when it rains. I think we're going to be in for a treat this weekend. I plan on being back at Garden Bar Bodega on Sunday if anyone wants to join me to watch the race. On that note, Andrew, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. Always a pleasure to chat F1. And have a good weekend. And we'll see what the storylines are going to be after Sunday's race.
Let's see. I mean, it's going to be wet. It's going to be exciting, and it's always going to be a thriller down in Interlagos. Tell you that much.
All right, stay tuned next week as we'll recap the Brazilian Grand Prix. See you, everybody.